The ballroom didn't just fall silent, it went cold. The very second the boiling soup hit my skin, the entire room froze in place. It splashed across my cheek, down my neck, and into the neckline of my dress, burning with a heat so sharp it felt alive. Gasps ricocheted off the chandeliers. Except for her, my mother-in-law. She stepped closer, calm, composed, almost elegant, and said with a voice that could cut marble, "You deserved it, Aaliyah." That was the moment I realized she wanted witnesses. She wanted an audience for my humiliation. I didn't scream. I didn't wipe the scalding broth from my face. I didn't crumble. I took out my phone, dialed the number I had saved for months, and whispered 3 words that would unravel everything she built. But to understand why this happened, why she threw boiling soup at me in front of 200 people, you need to know what led us here. Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. I tell true stories wrapped in the kinds of lessons life teaches the hard way. Betrayal, manipulation, family drama, and sometimes molten hot soup. If emotional storytelling is your thing, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and let's get into it. Because this story didn't start with soup. It started with love and blindness. My name is Aaliyah Brooks, and 3 years ago, my life was quiet in the kind of way that makes you believe nothing bad could ever happen. I lived in a small West End apartment filled with plants doing their best to survive my inconsistent watering, stacks of books by my bedside, and thrift store furniture I fixed up myself. I taught middle school English, baked on Sundays, and spent far too many nights falling asleep to true crime documentaries. And back then, I truly believed I had married a good man. Marcellus Brooks, easy smile, gentle voice, dependable shoulders, a man raised in church pews and southern warmth. I thought marrying him meant safety. But nothing prepared me for his mother, Veretta Brooks. She was the kind of woman who walked into a room and made everyone straighten their posture. Pearls every day, designer everything, a gaze that inspected your soul before deciding whether you deserved her presence. The first time we met, her eyes scanned me from hair to shoes, pausing long enough to make me feel like a fashion mistake. "You're simple, Aaliyah." A practiced smile. "Refreshing, I suppose. My son has always preferred polished women." Marcellus later whispered, trying to soothe me, "She's just particular. She'll come around." But Veretta didn't come around. She closed in. Little by little, in ways subtle enough that outsiders would miss it, but sharp enough that I could feel her chipping away at me. The first real crack appeared during a simple dinner at her Buckhead home. Her definition of simple meant fine china, crystal water goblets, a centerpiece large enough to block eye contact, and lighting adjusted like a photo shoot. I wore my best dress. I brought a homemade sweet potato pie. I even wore heels despite my ankle still aching. She opened the door, glanced down, and her lips twitched. "Those heels will do. Flats would have been unfortunate." Dinner was stiff but manageable. Small talk, forced smiles, Marcellus pretending everything was normal. Then dessert arrived. Her housekeeper served everyone chocolate mousse in elegant crystal cups. Everyone. But me. She placed a tiny porcelain saucer in front of me, holding a teaspoon of mousse, one lonely, pathetic spoonful. Veretta's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I wasn't sure you understood portion control, darling." The air evaporated from my lungs. Marcellus laughed awkwardly. Everyone else pretended not to hear. And something inside me shifted. Not broken, but bending under pressure. Days later, my favorite gold hoops, my late aunt's gift, vanished. I searched everywhere. 3 days later, Marcellus found them in his glove compartment. I hadn't been in his car all week, but I had worn them the night we ate at Veretta's. A faint dread crept in. Why were my earrings tucked away in his car days later? Late one night, a text notification buzzed. A group message from Veretta. A photo. She and Marcellus in her dining room, table set for two, candles low, plates half finished, a single wine glass glinting. His arm linked through hers intimately. They looked like a couple. A cold, heavy feeling sank into my stomach. Not jealousy, recognition. She wanted me to see this, to react, to break. Marcellus brushed it off. Mama gets lonely. I'm all she has. Don't overthink it. But the image stayed lodged in my mind. Why send it to me? Why at night? Why like that? 2 days after the photo, Marcellus came home near midnight. I hugged him, then stiffened. Lavender. Not my perfume, not anything we owned. Her lavender. Her signature scent, the one displayed on her vanity like a trophy. He lied instantly. Mama spilled candle wax on me. I was in her attic, helping her sort boxes. Her attic didn't smell like lavender perfume. And for the first time, I felt something heavy settle inside my chest. The awful sense that the pattern wasn't coincidence. Why was he at her house at midnight? And why lie about the scent on his skin? Friday afternoon, I found an envelope resting casually on our kitchen counter. His name, her handwriting, inside a folded note. She doesn't understand your needs. I'll always take care of you. Always. My hands shook, not just from anger, from the way those words felt like a promise, whispered between lovers, not a mother and son. It felt wrong, possessive, too close. I tucked the note away. I didn't confront him. Not yet. What kind of mother writes a vow like that? Friday brunch, big family table, light chatter. Then Veretta, casual as ever, lifted her mimosa and said, Marcellus, I warmed more of your favorite soup for you last night. You should have taken some home. My heart stilled. Because the night before, Marcellus had told me he was working overtime. He froze, then forced the smile that didn't reach his eyes. Why soup? Why every time? Why the secrecy? 3 months later came the charity banquet, a night I hoped would reset everything, a night where I could just be Marcellus's wife, not her mother's rival. I wore a soft gold dress, curled my hair, smoothed my nerves with a deep breath. But the moment we entered the ballroom, I felt it. A shift, a tension, eyes watching. And then I saw her. Veretta. Draped in sequins, pearls glimmering under the chandelier, face crafted into a polite, venomous smile. She walked toward me like someone approaching a problem she'd spent months preparing to solve. And before the night ended, she would make her move. She would pick up a bowl of boiling soup. She would throw it across my face. She would try to break me in front of everyone. Not out of anger, but fear. Because she knew something I didn't yet. A secret she and Marcellus had been hiding from me. As that soup scorched my skin, I realized this wasn't an outburst. It was a last attempt to silence me. And the call I made afterwards, it didn't just expose their secret, it destroyed everything they valued. The second the soup struck my skin, the world spun out of focus. Heat ripped across my cheek and neck in a searing wave, and the ballroom erupted around me, chairs scraping, people gasping, forks clattering against plates. But the only thing I saw clearly was her. Veretta Brooks stood perfectly still, fingers resting lightly on the rim of the empty bowl, her expression calm, almost pleased. And beside her stood the man who had promised to protect me, Marcellus Brooks, frozen, eyes wide, not with fear for me, but with the unmistakable shock of a man whose worst secret was just threatened. His silence wasn't protective, it was telling. A cold understanding settled into my chest as steam curled up from my burning skin. I fumbled for my phone, dialed a single number, whispered, "It's time. Now." The response came like a promise. "I'm already close." A few guests stared at me as if I'd just triggered something bigger than all of us, and they were right. A pair of hands grabbed me. "Aaliyah, oh my God. Aaliyah, look at me." The voice snapped into focus. Tasha, my coworker, sprinted toward me with the napkin wrapped around ice cubes. She pressed it gently against my cheek, and I bit back a cry as the cold stung the blistered skin. People circled around us in a frantic burst. "Get water! Call 911! Oh my God, she's burned!" But through the haze, I kept staring at the source of the pain. Veretta didn't look frightened, didn't look ashamed. She smoothed a crease in her dress and announced loudly, "She provoked me. I defended myself." Tasha whipped around. "Defended yourself? She didn't even talk to you tonight." But Veretta refused to acknowledge her. Her gaze flicked only to one person, Marcellus. He flinched under it. Security finally arrived, too gentle, too hesitant, and asked her to step away. And just when I thought Marcellus might finally come to me, he leaned in and whispered something that broke me far deeper than the burn. "Aaliyah," he murmured urgently, "don't involve the police. We can settle this privately." I stared at him, stunned. "Privately? She assaulted me, Marcellus." He swallowed hard. She panicked. She threw boiling soup at my face. His eyes darted toward his mother. She stood, watching him, jaw tight like she was silently directing every move. "I'm begging you, don't press charges. Not yet." Something inside me twisted painfully. Not yet? What exactly are you afraid will come out? His breath caught, the tiniest slip. And fear swept across his eyes so quickly he couldn't hide it. Before he could answer, a deep voice cut through the noise from behind us. "Aaliyah Brooks?" We both turned. A tall man stepped into the private side room where the paramedics had guided me. His presence changed the air. Detective Langston Miles carried authority without raising his voice. Broad shoulders under a dark jacket, black frame glasses catching the ballroom light, eyes scanning everything in one sweep. Marcellus stiffened. Veretta froze, only for a split second, but enough to make my stomach drop. The detective nodded to the paramedics before approaching me. "Aaliyah," he said quietly, "I got your message." Relief loosened my chest. "How bad is it?" Miles asked the medic. "Second-degree burns, face and chest." Miles exhaled slowly, not in frustration, but focus. Then his attention flicked to me. "Do you want to make an official statement?" Before I could speak, Marcellus lunged forward. This isn't necessary. We can." The detective didn't even look at him. "My question was for your wife." The entire room fell silent. Something in Marcellus shrank back. and I found my voice. Yes, I said, I want to press charges. Detective Miles opened a leather notebook and listened as I told him everything. The throw, the burn, the words Veretta had spoken afterwards. He wrote without rushing, without interrupting. But when I explained the coldness in her eyes, he paused. Did she say anything indicating hostility before the attack? I hesitated. She said I didn't deserve her son, Marcellus blurted out. She didn't mean it like that. Marcellus? Veretta snapped softly. Enough. But it was too late. Detective Miles lowered his pen. That statement suggests motive. He studied them, slow, calculating, almost surgical in the way he dissected their body language. Then he added, and people don't pick up bowls of hot soup and throw them without buildup. There's always a pressure point. His gaze sharpened. What exactly is she afraid the police might discover? Neither of them answered. Their silence felt like a confession. Once EMS cleared me to move, Tasha walked me down a quieter hallway to check my bandages. But then a soft voice echoed behind me. Aaliyah. Marcellus. He stood half hidden in the stairwell doorway, shoulders tense. I need to talk to you. Just us. Every instinct in me screamed to walk away. But I stepped inside, not out of trust, but closure. The door thudded shut behind us. Marcellus leaned against the wall, dragging a hand down his face like he was trying to wipe away everything he was feeling. Please don't push this. You don't understand what's at stake. I stared at him. At stake for who? He swallowed. She didn't mean to hurt you. She thought she was protecting. He cut the sentence short, eyes darting nervously. Protecting what, Marcellus? He didn't answer, but his expression changed. Something cracked behind his eyes. Not just fear, regret. Real, heavy regret. It lasted 1 second before he smothered it. Mama made a mistake. She didn't want it to get this far. Get to what far? His silence said everything. The stairwell door swung open a moment later. Detective Miles stepped in, eyes cold and deliberate. Good, you're both here. Veretta lingered behind him, pretending she wasn't eavesdropping. Miles didn't bother acknowledging her act. A few witnesses have already given statements. One of them overheard something earlier tonight. My stomach clenched. What did she say? I asked. Miles flipped a page in his notebook. She told another guest. It won't matter soon. She'll be gone before anything comes out. My entire body went cold. A threat. Not an insult. A threat. My heart slammed painfully against my ribs. Detective Miles took 1 step closer, toward Marcellus. This wasn't spontaneous. This was strategic. Another step. You two weren't trying to stop embarrassment. His voice lowered, controlled, lethal. You were trying to stop the truth. He stared directly into Marcellus's eyes. So I'll ask once more. What were you and your mother trying to keep buried? Marcellus's mouth opened, closed, and his shoulders collapsed under a weight he could no longer carry. But he still said nothing. And that silence was worse than any confession. As Detective Miles waited and Marcellus stood frozen in terrified silence, I realized with absolute certainty, this wasn't jealousy. This wasn't family drama. This wasn't even about me. They were hiding something enormous, and the soup wasn't an attack. It was a warning. A last-ditch attempt to keep their secret buried. And the detective, He already had the first missing piece. He just hadn't revealed it yet. The hospital's bathroom mirror didn't feel real. The harsh fluorescent lights washed everything in sterile blue-white. The tiles smelled faintly of bleach. The fan above buzzed unevenly, as if it were struggling to stay alive. And there I stood, bandages wrapped across my cheek and neck, the edges still stained with faint amber traces of soup the nurses hadn't been able to fully clean from my hair. My reflection didn't look like me, didn't feel like me. I lifted trembling fingers, touching the bandage gently. A dull ache pulsed beneath it, the kind of pain that makes you feel hollow inside. And for the first time since the banquet, I let myself feel it. Not the burn, not the humiliation, the betrayal. She'll be gone before anything comes out. The sentence looped in my mind like a song I couldn't silence. Gone. Before anything comes out. Gone. My throat tightened. A knock sounded on the bathroom door. "Aaliyah?" a voice asked softly. "Detective Langston." I steadied myself, opened the door, and stepped back into the dim hospital hallway. Miles studied my face, not with pity, but with an unreadable mix of concern and calculation. He asked, "Are you okay to talk?" "As okay as I can be," I murmured. He nodded. "Let's step into a private room." He guided me into a consultation room, small, beige, just 2 chairs and a table. He closed the door behind us. And then he got straight to it. "I'm going to be blunt with you," he said. "The overheard statement changes everything. This is no longer just a domestic assault." My pulse ticked faster. "What does that mean?" he said, lowering his voice. "It means there's reason to believe the attack was part of a larger attempt to intimidate, silence, or remove you from a situation." "Remove?" I repeated. "As in, I don't want you to jump to conclusions," he cut in gently. "But yes, that word is being interpreted seriously." My breath caught. "Remove me? Remove me from what?" He opened a small folder. "There's something else," he said. "Something I haven't told you yet." My stomach tightened. "What something?" He turned the folder around and slid it to me. A single sentence was highlighted. "Subject involved in an active probate dispute regarding an estate misappropriation claim." My brows knitted. "Estate?" I whispered. "Whose estate?" He said, "Her late sister's. $784,000 worth of assets are unaccounted for." Heat crept up my spine, not from the burn this time. "You think she stole from her own sister?" "I'm saying," Miles replied carefully, "a very large sum disappeared, and she's the primary person of interest." I closed my eyes for a moment. "And what does that have to do with me?" I asked. He watched me. "You married her son. That connects you to any investigation involving fraudulent transfers, hidden accounts, or joint property." The realization hit me like a physical blow. She wasn't just trying to hurt me, she was trying to eliminate a liability. "And there's more," Miles added quietly. "I believe your husband may also be tied to this." My heart lurched. "No, Marcella's..." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure anymore. Not after everything I'd seen, everything he'd refused to say. Miles leaned forward. "Aaliyah, do you know the password to your husband's laptop?" I stared at him, ice spreading through my veins. "Yes," I whispered. "Good," he said softly. "Because whatever they're hiding, it's connected to that missing money. And tonight wasn't about jealousy. It was about shutting you up before you found something. The hospital room was dim when I returned, bandages fresh, IV removed. Tasha had gone home to grab clothes for me. Miles had stepped out to make a call. So when the door creaked open, I thought it was a nurse. It wasn't. Marcellus stepped in, eyes rimmed red, but not from crying, from panic. "Baby, we need to talk." I stiffened instantly. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. "Where's your mother?" I asked. He hesitated. "She's in the waiting area." Of course she was. The puppet master never strayed far from her strings. He moved toward me slowly, like he was approaching a cornered animal. "You have to believe me," he whispered. "Tonight wasn't supposed to happen. Mama she lost control. She was scared." "Scared of what?" I snapped. He opened his mouth, closed it, ran a hand through his hair, paced once. Then he looked at me, really looked at me. And something flickered inside his expression. Shame. "Ilea," he whispered, "there are things you don't understand, things I never told you, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how to." My breath trembled. "What things?" He stared at the floor. His voice broke. "I didn't know you'd get dragged into it. Mama said she could handle it, that no one would get hurt." "Marcellus," my voice shook. "Dragged into what?" His jaw clenched. "A mistake," he whispered. "One we can't undo now." I stepped back until my hip hit the bed frame. "Did you take that money? From Vernetta's sister?" He flinched visibly. "Please," he begged. "Don't involve the police any further. We can fix this. We just need time." And that was it. That was his tell. He didn't deny it, not once. My stomach twisted violently. I whispered, "What did you do?" He inhaled sharply, like the truth was a weight he couldn't carry, but before he could answer, a soft, sharp voice floated in from the doorway. "She doesn't need to know that." We both turned. Veretta stood in the doorway, eyes cold, lips pressed into a thin line, and this time she spoke directly to me. "Ilea," she said calmly, "you've done enough damage for one night." My laugh came out choked. "I've done damage?" She stepped inside, closing the door with a soft click. "You should never have gone behind our backs, never should have involved that detective." My spine stiffened. I was attacked. "You inserted yourself where you didn't belong." My pulse hammered. "Mama," Marcellus whispered, "please." Quiet. The command sliced through him like glass. He obeyed instantly. I stared at him, horrified. Veretta's gaze returned to me. "Whatever Detective Miles told you," she said, "is irrelevant. Our affairs do not concern you." "Your affairs dragged me into the ER," I snapped. She sighed, exasperated. "This is exactly why I wanted distance." My blood chilled. "Distance?" I repeated softly. "Meaning what? Removing me?" Her silence was answer enough. My voice quivered. "You wanted me gone?" She didn't deny it. Instead, she said the one sentence that made the entire room tilt. "You were going to ruin everything." My mouth went dry. "What? Everything?" She exhaled, long, frustrated, like she was finally giving up on pretending. "Marcellus moved money into your joint account without your knowledge." My chest caved inward. "What money?" I whispered. She stared at me, eyes dark with disdain. $800,000. The room spun. Marcellus staggered, pressing his hand to his face. "Mama." "I told you she'd find out eventually," she snapped. My knees nearly buckled. "You moved stolen money?" I breathed. "Into an account with my name on it?" Marcellus looked like a little boy caught with the matchbook near gasoline. "Aaliyah, I was trying to protect us." "Protect?" I whispered. "You implicated me." A tear slipped down his cheek. "I didn't know what else to do." And then, as if the night hadn't already spiraled enough, the door swung open again. Detective Miles stepped inside. He'd heard everything. Detective Miles' face hardened. He said, "Aaliyah, step away from them." My breath hitched. "What's happening?" I whispered. He didn't take his eyes off Marcella's or Veretta as he spoke. "New evidence just came in, and it changes everything." Marcellus wiped his face. Veretta clasped her purse tighter. Detective Miles lowered his voice. The stolen money wasn't the only thing hidden. My heart stopped. "What else?" I whispered. His next words shattered the room. "There was a second account, and it was opened in your name 3 days ago." I staggered backward. "I never opened that account. I never signed anything. I never—" And then it hit me. The note, the perfume, the late nights. They weren't preparing to remove me from their lives. They were preparing to frame me. For a moment, the room was silent. Not the kind of silence that follows shock, but the kind that comes right before something shatters. Detective Langston Miles stood in the doorway, shoulders squared, gaze locked on the two people who had turned my life into a nightmare. My husband, Marcellus Brooks, looked like he couldn't breathe. And Veretta Brooks, she didn't blink, didn't flinch, didn't move. Only her fingers tightened around her purse strap. Detective Miles spoke first. "An account was opened in Aaliyah's name," he said, 3 days ago. "It received a transfer this morning." My voice cracked. "A transfer of what?" He took a slow breath. $37,000. The number punched air out of my lungs. Marcellus's face drained of color. And Veretta finally spoke. "Well," she said coolly, "that sounds like a clerical error, a mistake. Banks mislabel accounts all the time." Detective Miles didn't even acknowledge her. "It wasn't a mistake," he said. "The signature on the account authorization matches Aaliyah's." My throat tightened. "I never signed anything." "We know," Miles said gently. "The signature isn't yours. Someone forged it." My heart pounded so violently it hurt. Forged my name. Opened an account. Moved stolen money into it. Frame me. That was the plan all along. Marcellus stumbled forward. "Detective, please, just let me explain, okay? She wasn't supposed to know yet." "Know what?" I snapped. He looked at me, eyes filled with panic and something else, something almost like shame. "She wasn't supposed to take the fall," he whispered. Fall. Fall. The word sliced through me. "Take the fall for what?" I demanded, voice rising. Marcellus squeezed his eyes shut like he couldn't bear to see me hear the truth. "For the money," he whispered. The world tilted. I stepped back slowly until I hit the hospital bed behind me. "You were going to blame me for money you stole?" Marcellus didn't answer, because the answer was yes. Yes. My knees almost buckled. Detective Miles stepped to my side, a protective instinct radiating off him. Veretta let out a long, annoyed sigh. "Marcellus, stop groveling. This isn't helping." He looked at her helplessly. "Mama, quiet," she snapped, and he obeyed. That was the moment I understood something devastating. Marcellus wasn't just manipulated. He wasn't trapped. He was loyal. Loyal to her, loyal to the crime, loyal to the plan that ended with me in handcuffs. My stomach churned. Detective Miles spoke again, voice low and edged with authority. Before we continue, both of you need to understand anything you say right now can be used in a formal investigation. Veretta's lips tightened. Marcellus's breathing turned fast and shallow. This is insane, she said coldly. You're blowing a family misunderstanding out of proportion. Miles tilted his head. You threw boiling soup at your daughter-in-law in a ballroom full of witnesses. Veretta's nostrils flared, the first crack in her mask. And Miles wasn't done. You followed that attack with a financial paper trail that implicates her. It was preventative, she snapped, before she could stop herself. Everyone froze. Detective Miles' eyes sharpened. Preventative of what? Veretta straightened her shoulders, recovering her mask. No comment. But it was too late. She had already said enough. Detective Miles stepped out to take a phone call, leaving the three of us in a tension-thick silence. The door clicked softly behind him. Marcellus dragged both hands through his hair. Aaliyah, listen. Just listen, he pleaded. I didn't want this. I swear I didn't. Didn't want what? Me getting blamed? Me going to jail? Me being gone before anything comes out? Your mother's words? He winced. Mama thought. Oh, I know what Mama thought. But what about you? What did you think, Marcellus? Silence. He folded. Like a collapsing mirror image of the man I once trusted. I thought, he swallowed, voice trembling. I thought we could fix it before you found out. We? I repeated. So you were helping her. He didn't deny it. He didn't have to. And then, almost too quietly to hear, I didn't think the soup would happen. My skin turned cold. You two talked about removing me from the situation, didn't you? He looked away. That was the answer. Every small breadcrumb from the past months crashed together in my mind. The earrings, the photo, the lavender, the note, the midnight visits, the soup slip-up. They weren't random. They were steps. Every one a test of how close I was getting. Every one a sign of panic. Every one a reminder that I was being positioned slowly, carefully, into the role of the fall woman. The realization nearly took the air out of my lungs. The door cracked open again, but this time, it wasn't Detective Miles. A nurse peeked in. Mrs. Brooks, there's a visitor for you. I frowned. Who? She checked her chart. A woman named Denise? My stomach twisted. Denise. Veretta's younger sister. The one from the probate documents. The one connected to the missing money. Veretta stiffened. Marcellus's eyes widened. And the nurse added, She says she has information about the estate. The room snapped into a new kind of tension. Denise entered slowly, a woman in her 50s, trembling hands clutching a folder, hair graying at the temples. Her eyes landed on me and softened. Then she looked at Veretta and hardened. You, she said quietly, should have told the truth a long time ago. Veretta's voice turned ice cold. Denise, leave. Denise ignored her. She stepped closer to me and opened the folder. I came because you deserve to know what they were about to do to you. My breath caught. What do you mean? She slid a document toward me, A typed statement, my name at the top, a confession, a fake confession. My body went rigid, my signature forged at the bottom. I found this in Veretta's desk drawer yesterday, Denise whispered. She'd planned to turn it in next week. I nearly collapsed. The room spun. Marcella staggered forward. Mama, what is this? Veretta's mask finally shattered. You were supposed to keep her away from the finances, she snapped at him. I gave you one job. His face crumpled. Aaliyah wasn't supposed to see that, he whispered. Denise stepped between them. Oh, shut up, both of you, she hissed. You wanted her blamed for your theft. You were going to pin every dollar on her. My knees buckled. The bed caught me. Denise reached gently for my hand. You weren't just a liability, Aaliyah. You were the perfect scapegoat. Clean record, teacher, trustworthy. No one would question it. Tears pricked my eyes. The room felt too small. And then the door opened again. Detective Miles stepped inside, mid-sentence. I just got off the phone with the financial... He froze. His eyes scanned. My trembling body, Denise crying, Marcellus slumped, Veretta shaking with fury, and the forged confession on the table. Slowly, deliberately, he picked up the document. His entire demeanor changed. Authority, command, steel. Aaliyah, he said softly, stand behind me. I obeyed. He turned to Marcellus and Veretta. This, he said, lifting the forged confession, is evidence of criminal conspiracy, identity fraud, and attempted coercion. Veretta's hands shook. You can't prove... Oh, I can, Miles said quietly. Starting with handwriting analysis and continuing with the audio file I received from one of the banquet witnesses. Audio file? I whispered. My heart pounded. What audio file? He looked at me, and the softness in his eyes turned into something like fury. The one where Veretta tells another guest it'll be easier once she's out of the picture. The room detonated. Marcellus gasped. Denise covered her mouth. I felt my stomach drop, and Veretta, for the first time since I'd known her, she looked afraid, truly afraid. Detective Miles stepped forward, voice firm. Veretta Brooks, I am placing you under arrest. Marcellus reached out, panicked. Mama. And you, Miles said sharply, turning to him, are not far behind. You're being detained for questioning about financial fraud and attempted framing. Marcellus's face fell apart. Detective, please don't. Save it, Miles said. Denise whispered a prayer under her breath. I stood frozen, watching everything collapse around me. Everything they had built on lies, everything they tried to bury, everything they tried to pin on me. Detective Miles glanced at me over his shoulder, voice soft again. It's over, Aaliyah. You're safe now. But something deep inside me whispered, no, not yet. Because Marcellus's eyes, as he was handcuffed, flashed with something that made my skin crawl. Fear, yes, but also something darker, something unfinished. As Veretta was led out of the room and Marcellus followed behind her in trembling silence, Detective Miles handed me the forged confession. Only then did I see it. A date typed in the corner. A date that wasn't 3 days ago. A date that was tomorrow, meaning the plan hadn't been stopped. It had only just begun. For a moment, I didn't hear anything. Not the hum of the fluorescent lights, not the beep of the heart monitor across the hall. Not even the distant commotion of Veretta and Marcellus being escorted away. All I could see was the date printed in the corner of the forged confession. Tomorrow. Detective Langston Miles stood beside me, brows furrowed as he examined the page again. "This wasn't meant to be found today," he said quietly. "They planned for you to sign this tomorrow." My breath hitched. "Sign it when?" I whispered. "After what?" He met my eyes. "Whatever they intended to do between now and tomorrow morning." A cold wave rolled through my body. "You think they planned to hurt me?" "He think they planned to break you," he said softly. "Emotionally, physically. Enough to force this confession." The page trembled in my hands. This wasn't just chaos. This was choreography. Every breadcrumb, every slip, every humiliation, all leading to tomorrow. Miles opened the second folder. Probate documents, asset lists, financial statements. "Here's the part they didn't want you seeing." He turned the page, and my heart sank. A list of property filled the page. Homes, bonds, investments, insurance policies. Almost $1 million worth. My throat dried. "This is all from Veretta's sister?" Every penny. And somehow none of it ever made it to the legal heirs. He pointed to a highlighted line. Beneficiary, Veretta L. Brooks and Marcellus L. Brooks. Joint claimants, pending review. My pulse hammered. "They were stealing everything," I whispered. "And laundering it," he said, "through accounts connected to you." My fingers tightened around the chair. "Why me?" "Because you're clean," he said. "A respected teacher with no debt, no history, no suspicious behavior. You were the perfect fall woman." A cold pressure settled in my chest. "A scapegoat," I whispered. "Exactly." I pressed a hand to the bandage on my cheek, suddenly aware of how deeply everything had been orchestrated. The earrings, the intimate photo, the perfume, the envelope, the late-night whisper, the forged confession. You weren't just inconvenient. You were essential. The realization hit like a punch. Marcellus wasn't protecting me. He was preparing me. Miles didn't respond. He didn't need to. A soft knock sounded at the doorway. I tensed. But it was Denise, trembling, clutching her folder like it was holding her together. "I need to talk to you," she whispered. "Both of you." Miles stepped aside. Denise shut the door and lowered her voice. "This wasn't all Veretta's idea," she said. "There's someone else." My stomach dropped. "Who?" "I only know him as the partner." Her hands shook. She never said his name, but I've heard his voice before. Her eyes darted toward the hall as if expecting him to appear. "He used to come to the house, always late, always stayed behind closed doors in the study. Calm voice, deep, controlled, and he told her exactly how to move the money." A chill slid down my spine. "He's expecting something tomorrow." Miles leaned in. "Expecting what?" Denise swallowed. "You." My breath caught. "He said you needed to look emotionally unstable by tomorrow, that you'd be willing to sign anything, then you'd go away for a while." Go away. Disappear. I felt the room tilt. "They weren't just trying to frame me," I whispered. "They wanted me gone long enough for him to move the rest of the assets." Denise nodded. "He said you were the last loose thread." My throat closed. I wasn't a daughter-in-law. I was a liability. Miles stood abruptly. "We're leaving. This hospital is not safe." Denise grabbed his arm. "You don't understand. He has people everywhere." "Including here?" My voice trembled. Denise nodded. Before Miles could reply, a loud crash echoed down the hallway. Then a man's voice boomed. "Check every room. She's in this wing." My bloodstream turned to ice. Miles cracked open the door an inch. 4 men moved down the hallway, scrub tops, visitor badges clipped neatly to their pockets. The uniforms looked real, but their eyes didn't. Predatory, focused, hunters. He shut the door quietly. "They're here for you," he whispered. "Now move." He guided us into the dim maintenance corridor behind the hospital room. Pipes rattled overhead. Cleaning carts lined the walls. Every light flickered like it was struggling to stay on. Hospitals were supposed to be safe, but tonight, even the fluorescent lights felt like they were stalking me. "Hurry," Miles murmured. "South elevator, restricted access." We moved fast, shoes squeaking on waxed floors. Behind us, footsteps pounded, voices echoed, room doors opened and slammed. And then, the service door burst open at the far end of the hallway. "There!" someone shouted. "Down the service wing." Miles yanked a badge key from his jacket pocket, swiping a metal door at the corridor's end. It beeped, unlocked. "Inside," he ordered. We slipped into a cold concrete stairwell. He slammed the door shut. Fists pounded on it instantly. "Go," he barked. "Down the stairs, level B." But when I turned toward the stairwell, I froze. My pulse vanished. A tall figure stood at the bottom of the stairs. Broad shoulders, face half-shadowed, posture calm, unbothered, in control. Denise's voice barely spilled out. "That's him," she whispered. "I know that voice. He used it in the study." The figure stepped up one stair, then another. His voice drifted upward, smooth, measured, chilling. "Mrs. Brooks." He took another step. "You weren't supposed to be awake for this part." The stairwell lights flickered. He reached into his pocket. Something metallic glinted. Cold, sharp, meant for me. Miles shouted my name. Denise screamed, but the partner never flinched. He rose another step and smiled. "Time," he murmured, "to finish what they couldn't." The metallic object left his hand, flying toward me, and everything went white. The metallic object flew through the air. Not a knife, not a gun. Something worse, in its own way. A syringe. Long, cold, pre-loaded, designed to knock me out, designed to silence me long enough for tomorrow's confession. Time slowed. I didn't scream. I didn't breathe. I just watched it spin toward me. Detective Miles lunged. His shoulders slammed into mine, shoving me backward as the syringe whizzed past my ear and clattered against the concrete. Denise shrieked. Miles shoved me behind him and squared himself toward the descending figure. The partner, the man who orchestrated everything. He didn't run, didn't rush, didn't even look upset. He just stepped calmly up the stairs until we could see his face under the flickering stairwell light. And when I saw him, my stomach dropped. I knew that face. Not well, but I had seen him. At the banquet, in a suit, talking to donors, laughing with the event organizer. A man who blended in easily. Detective Miles snapped, hands where I can see them, but the partner only smiled. His voice was smooth, low, familiar. He told them that you were smarter than you looked. Miles kept one hand near the holster inside his jacket. "Don't move." The partner raised his empty hand slowly, mockingly. "Detective, you're making this more complicated than it needs to be." Miles narrowed his eyes. "Who are you?" The man gave a slight bow. "Elias Hayworth," he said. Elias. I knew that name. He was the director of a family support nonprofit that helped grief-stricken relatives navigate estate transitions. I had seen his brochure in Veretta's kitchen. He was the professional, the guide, the trusted advisor. And he was also the one who planned my disappearance. He turned his gaze to me. "Aaliyah Brooks, you were supposed to be sedated by now. Cooperative. Not like this." My skin crawled. I planned to drug me? Not permanently, just long enough for tomorrow's confession, your breakdown, your voluntary admission. He sighed like I was an inconvenience. You ruined the timeline. I felt dizzy. Why me? Miles interjected, because they needed a patsy. Elias tilted his head. Incorrect. I needed a patsy. He took another step. Miles didn't back down. You stole from a dead woman, used her family, manipulated them, and tried to disappear her daughter-in-law. He smiled. They agreed freely. My breath trembled. They agreed to sacrifice me? He nodded gently. Your husband was motivated by fear, your mother-in-law by greed, but you were simply the cleanest. My vision blurred with tears. How can you talk about this like it's business? I whispered. He shrugged. Because it is. He reached into his coat slowly. Miles pulled his gun. Don't. But Elias only pulled out a phone. And with a single tap, alarms blared above us. Hospital lockdown. Miles cursed. He hacked the system, Denise gasped. Elias smiled wider. You won't make it out of this wing alive. Suddenly, footsteps thundered overhead. The men in scrubs, coming down the stairs toward us. Miles grabbed my wrist. Move, now. We raced down the steps, Elias following slowly, calmly, like the predator he was. Denise stumbled behind us. The stairwell echoed with chaos. Fists banging on doors, alarms wailing, men shouting commands. Miles shoved open a door onto a dim basement hallway. This way. We sprinted through the underground corridor, weaving past laundry carts and industrial pipes. Behind us, Elias walked in, unhurried, like he already won. Miles grabbed a metal pole and jammed it through the handles of the stairwell door. Pounding started instantly. We have about 10 seconds, he snapped. We ran. My legs burned, my lungs screamed, but adrenaline pushed me forward. Rounding a corner, we entered the morgue prep area. Empty, cold, stainless steel tables glinting under harsh lights. A terrible hiding place, a perfect trap. Can we get out? I gasped. Back exit leads to loading bay. Stay close. But before we could reach it, the opposite door burst open. 2 men in scrubs flooded in, trapped between them and the stairwell. Elias's voice echoed from behind. Don't make this ugly. Miles lifted his gun. Stay behind me. I grabbed Denise's arm and pulled her behind a steel table. The men approached fast. Elias stepped into the room slowly, hands in his pockets. You were supposed to vanish quietly, Aaliyah. A disappearance without a body draws questions, but an overdose in a hospital? Sad. Tragic. Believable. My knees shook. Why? Why go this far? He smiled softly. Because you're standing between me and $784,000. A distant rumble shook the wall. Police sirens. Elias's expression flickered. Miles grinned. You shouldn't have activated that lockdown alarm. Every cruiser in the city is headed here. Elias's men tensed. The moment cracked like ice. Miles fired first. One man went down. The other lunged, tackling him. They crashed onto a table, metal clanging. Denise screamed. I froze. Until Denise grabbed my arm. Aaliyah, look! Elias was moving toward an exit. To escape. To vanish. To regroup. Something inside me snapped. Not from fear. From fury. The kind of fury that comes from being hunted, framed, erased. I ran, straight at him. Elias turned just as I slammed into him. We crashed against the wall, his phone skittering across the floor. He grunted and grabbed my wrists, trying to pin me. You stubborn little. But I wasn't the same woman who walked into that banquet. I wasn't quiet, I wasn't scared, and I wasn't letting him win. I kneed him hard in the stomach. He doubled over, gasping. I snatched the fallen syringe off the floor and pointed it at him with shaking hands. Back up. His eyes widened, just a flicker, but enough. You don't have the nerve, he hissed. I took one step forward. Try me. Suddenly, the door behind Elias exploded open. Uniformed officers poured in. Drop it! At ease, Miles shouted, bruised, breathless, dragging himself up. She's the victim. 2 officers tackled Elias to the ground, cuffing him roughly. He fought, snarling. You'd think this changes anything, he spat at me. Someone else will finish the transfer. It's already in motion. But Miles lifted the syringe carefully from my trembling hand. No, he said, it ends here. The next hours blurred. Elias Hayworth was arrested on charges that filled an entire page. Conspiracy, fraud, racketeering, kidnapping attempt, assault, forgery. And 2 officers pulled his phone logs, revealing dozens of calls to Veretta Brooks and Marcellus Brooks in the weeks leading up to the banquet. By morning, Marcellus and Veretta both cracked. Marcellus sobbed through his confession, admitting he let his mother pressure him into funneling money into the joint account, never expecting it to go this far. Veretta confessed with venom and 0 remorse. He should have chosen me, she spat, not her. But her signature was on the forged documents, her fingerprints on the envelope, her handwriting on the note, her voice on the audio file from the banquet. The evidence drowned her. And by sunrise, it was over. The burns on my cheek healed slowly. The bruises faded, but the fear took longer. I moved into a new apartment. Tasha helped me repaint the walls. Miles checked in weekly, sometimes for the case, sometimes just to check in. The divorce finalized fast once Marcellus accepted a plea deal. And one afternoon, I found myself standing outside the courthouse, breathing fresh fall air for the first time without panic. Miles stepped beside me. You okay? He asked. I smiled. For the first time in a long time, yeah. He nodded slowly. You saved yourself in that stairwell. I looked away, eyes warming. No, I just stopped letting them decide who I get to be. He smiled. You know, kindness always comes back eventually. I swallowed. So does justice. He held the door for me as we headed inside. And for the first time since that boiling soup hit my skin, I felt safe. I felt whole. I felt free. Thank you for listening to Aaliyah's story. If you're into emotional, cinematic, true story storytelling like this, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and join our community of people who believe in lessons, healing, and justice. See you in the next story.